All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Meeting the Crew, and I hope to have another episode up prior to this one, so there's something else back. Today the crew is actually Camden Pace,
Hey, everybody, I'm Camden. It's good to be on the show. Thank you, Jonathan.
and you might know him from such places as Gameology on Experts React. So, now, before we get into that subject, because we're not going to just start off right into that, there's more to it. Um, so, I've been doing a little bit of interviews with veterans here lately. But what exactly was your connection with the military community?
Jonathan, when I was in high school, my dream was to be a fighter pilot. So I actually received a congressional appointment to the United States Air Force Academy. I had appointments to West Point and Annapolis, and chose to go to Air Force. And that was in June of 1987. And was on the football team at Air Force. Very briefly, my career as a cadet was short-lived. I was injured in a training accident. I fell off a rope climbing tower and had a head injury from that, a couple that might have been questionable from football. And basically just the schoolwork was way too hard. Plus in 1987, that was prior to all the hazing policies that came out later. So, a lot of weeks with not a whole lot of sleep and eating square meals where you can't really eat, and just being pushed beyond the brink, and then trying to compete at an NCAA Division I level it was too much for me. So
Yeah.
I was not able to finish my studies in the course or take my commission as a second lieutenant. But to this day, the values and discipline that were instilled in me, I still draw from, and it has served me well. My short experience at the Air Force Academy.
Now, with all of that you did experience, how exactly did you see the culture at that time? Because we see today as a lot of a lot of military culture is way different. You see, there was a big craze randomly on TikTok in the military, and then back in the day, clearly that would have been way different. So, how do you, from what you've seen now to back then, how would you see those two and like compare them?
In terms of maybe military culture or the attitude that maybe the public has towards the military, are you asking anything like that?
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't really specify. There's just a gigantic difference between then and now.
I think, well, and being the 1980s, at least at that time, this was prior to the big campaigns, prior to Desert Storm. There wasn't a whole lot going on, really, when I was a cadet, or my friends who actually went on and got commissioned at that time until Desert Storm started. As a high school kid, I don't, because of that, I don't think the military really got a whole lot of attention. There wasn't a lot of,
Wasn't any hype for it.
There was no hype. There was no hype at all. In fact, it was, I guess the best way to describe it might be kind of a neutral, flat viewpoint towards it. The 80s were, it was a different time, and I don't know how to quite describe it other than, it was a simple time compared to today,
Yeah.
And we'll get into that. But I think the difference is that probably more than ever, and I can say this because my father was in the Army in Vietnam, and I remember when he came home in '72 how people treated veterans, and it was horrific.
Yeah.
The military people, they were very disrespectful to servicemen and women that came home, and there wasn't the transition into society. A lot of them had the feeling of going to war at that time was very unpopular with a lot of people in the country. And what you see now is so many people support our armed forces, and there's so many programs that welcome veterans back to help them with either PTSD, mental illness, addiction, and especially with the Wounded Warriors Project, which is wonderful because they didn't have that back then.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think it's a very positive attitude. I think that service members are held in high self-esteem today, and it seems like a noble profession for a young person who may not quite be sure what they want to do with their life, but want that kind of training and experience, and maybe expertise in a field they can use later. It's a great alternative to trying to get out in the workforce now, where I mean it's really hard,
Yeah. It can be.
you
Yeah.
know, for a young
Yeah.
person. Yeah, so I guess that's kind of what I'm thinking is nowadays it's a totally different world. I think in all aspects.
Yeah. So after the military, uh, we'll go ahead, because obviously your time was a bit short, so we're not going to keep diving deep on that subject. But the clear subject that you've been famous for, would, would you like to start off prior to that and what led up to the whole craziness?
Yeah, yeah, and I'll bring everybody up to date on that. Some people may know me from the Gameology Experts React as a former bank robber. Now, that was never really in the cards. I could have never seen that coming up. I came from a great family. I was well raised. I was educated. But one of the things that I ran into, in addition to the head injuries when I came home when I was 19 years old, was that I was also undiagnosed as having bipolar disorder, which didn't get diagnosed until I was 21.
Mm.
Um, and a series of events that kind of led and spiraled for me into a life that had become pretty damn dark and gruesome. That eventually I did what I did, came out of. I couldn't function. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I was also chronically addicted to alcohol. And when I was 21, I overdosed on alcohol. I had alcohol poisoning. I was left for dead by 4 people that
Mm.
I was drinking with. And quite honestly, had an amazing supernatural experience where I left my body and was given a choice. I could stay or pass on, and I chose to stay. And I remember it was like coming up out of water and breathing for the first time. It's like someone had maybe hit you with paddles.
Yeah.
And that began my road of recovery started, or the beginning of the journey of recovery started then. But then I was still untreated for the bipolar disorder. Later diagnosed that year around, all the medications they have today weren't around then. So I was never successfully managed, and couldn't finish school, couldn't hold a job, was living with my parents. Didn't know what was wrong. I was sleeping 18, 19 hours a day from severe depression, or I'd
Yeah.
swing into mania and be up for 5 days without sleep.
Oh, wow.
And people who aren't familiar with bipolar disorder, it used to be called manic depressive disorder. Extreme highs, extreme lows. So we're talking, when I came home was 1988. I had made attempts to go back to school at the University of Georgia, which were unsuccessful, and to kind of maybe there was flashes of promise in between this,
Yeah.
that makes the road a little kind of take some different tangents. I did get on the cycling team at Georgia in 1993. I won the Southeastern United States Collegiate Criterium Championship.
Oh, wow.
I was chosen by the United States Cycling Federation in '96 to carry the Olympic torch in the '96 Games, or the flame from Eatonton, Georgia to Watkinsville, before I passed it off to a runner. But then that was '96. Things really spiraled after that. I went into a really bad depression, and started getting in trouble with the law. And it started off with a simple assault charge, and it kind of escalated into some other things. And then September of 1998, I went to a psychiatrist that was on the Medicare, not Medicare, but the base level state welfare fund.
Yeah.
That they had. And the medication I needed, you had to fail on several medications prior to that before they could give you the good medicine. and I never made it to the medicine, which actually works for me today.
Yeah.
I was on stuff that was terrible, and the side effects were horrible. And during my manic episodes, I developed a lot of the mania. People seek thrills because it's such an intense high, and I developed a gambling addiction. I got incredibly in debt, and one day the irrational decision to get out of debt, the simple solution would be to go rob a bank, and that's how that happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what kind of led up to that, and it's about as succinct as a progression that I can articulate.
Yeah, so that definitely sounded like it just wasn't a direct route. There was so many twists and turns in that whole leading up to that event.
Got a girlfriend pregnant during all that, and now I have a son that's 24 next month.
Oh,
So,
wow.
so yeah, it was a shotgun pattern of events throughout my life where everyone around me is like, well, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, yeah,
And it took me many years till I could get my life managed, my illness and my recovery, and heal from the brain damage that one of which was a car accident where I had traumatic brain injury driving under the influence,
yeah.
not wearing a seatbelt, and being in a wreck. So I spoke with a slur for 5 years, and I had no short-term memory.
Oh, wow.
I had to go through cognitive rehab prior to the bank robbery episode.
Wow, that's crazy. Well, with all that, how how did Gameology happen? Like, there is so. I mean, it's a whole lot. I know that probably happened right after that, but let's start with you know, clearly didn't work out the way you wanted to. Clearly, you got put into prison for what you did and all that. But when you got out and everything, what was basically the first step?
Okay, so I was taken into custody when I was 29, released when I was 39,
Mm-hmm.
and I was released on a Monday morning. Child support was due Friday afternoon, and no one wanted to hear a sad story.
Oh yeah, jeez. Yeah,
So I got a horrible exploitative job making nothing on that Thursday afternoon. I had to borrow money to pay the child support the next day until I could get my first paycheck 2 weeks later, and struggled for years with that. 2 years, I had another horrible episode where I was hospitalized for a psychiatric break. That was 2009, and I've successfully recovered from that. And it was a long, slow spiral up to where I was able to go back and finish college. So I have my degree in psychology now from the University of North Georgia.
oh, nice.
And yeah, so I've experienced a lot of success along the way. To bring us up to date where Gameology came into play was I graduated in 2015, and the next I actually, and some people might find this, they wouldn't know if they didn't know, but I wanted to go to law school after I graduated. So I took the LSAT, got a scholarship to law school off my LSAT score. But when you have to go through the different stages of whether or not you are qualified to sit for the bar exam, I was found unfit for my felony. Not to say a felony does necessarily disbars people from qualifying to be an attorney. They take a lot of factors into consideration. And so I exhausted that route thinking that's what I really wanted to do. And I like it. I enjoy studying the law. But on a whim, one day, I had done some theater way back in the day in school, done community theater, and I thought, it'd be probably fun to get back into acting.
Yeah.
And this was 2016. I had no idea where to begin as far as film because I'd done stage. So I saw a thing on TV. They advertised they needed extras down on a movie that was being filmed in Georgia. It was down in Norcross. So I sent a selfie in and an email. I got a call 2 nights later. They said, "Can you be on set tomorrow?" I said, "Sure." First time on set, one thing led to another, and I went from being a background performer to a a principal actor in a movie that was a major motion picture, went to theaters and became eligible for the Screen Actors Guild the very first day. And then just a lot of amazing lucky breaks have happened since then. And that started off in Georgia, and now I live and work in Los Angeles. So I came out here and things started working well. I had a friend who sent me a link to a casting breakdown where they were actually looking for a real ex-bank robber. She sent me the link, and I sent in for it. They said, "Hey, send us a little video telling us about your little story and all that," and I did. And this was Gameology's Experts React, where they needed to shoot some episodes for Grand Theft Auto, and needed a real bank robber to kind of react to the games. And that was last year. And then I just was asked back to do a few more episodes with Chris the Cop.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we are today with it.
Yeah, that hell of a freaking road, man. That before we go further, I just hope everybody watching, understand you can make it. You can get back up on your feet. It's possible. That's definitely like, just sounds like a miracle just to begin with. But for being known as a bank robber, what do you like or what do you dislike about that being part of your image?
It is a big part of my life. I spent a decade in the Federal Bureau of Prisons in different penitentiaries all over the country. It's a formative experience. At that time when I was released, it was over half my adult life I'd spent incarcerated. I don't want to embrace that as an identity.
Yeah.
And I apologize for that incoming call.
That's fine.
I'm silencing the phone. My agent's been calling, manager. Things are going good. So
yeah, that's good.
But I don't want to embrace being an ex-bank robber as my identity. It's a part of my life. It was a part of choices I made a long time ago. I seriously don't regret it. I wouldn't be who I am today without my character being forged in a lot of ways from those experiences. And I like who I am today. And I think I have a lot to offer people from a lot of those experiences that may, save them from making some bad choices and their lives being altered in a really unhealthy, non-productive way. But then again, I live kind of in a neutral place where I don't pass judgment on folks. But if I'm in a position to help somebody maybe go, hey, man, you do have a lot going for you. You may think things are hopeless. You may feel like you'll never get anywhere. But believe me, there is hope. And I'm living proof that, recovery is real if people can access the help that's available. And if they know where that help is and they're fortunate enough to be able to be in a place where with themselves that they're willing to take it. But there's a lot of me that's not a bank robber. I have a very multifaceted personality that I've considered pretty deep and rich in a lot of ways. And I don't want my legacy to be, here lies a bank robber.
Yeah. As you said, it was a moment, it wasn't 20 years of your life planning a robbery. It was a moment of your life that you just, forget it. I'm gonna give it a shot.
And I want to say this, in addition to being an actor, I'm a stand-up comedian, and I've got to say this because, a lot of the commenters have pointed out I must not be an expert bank robber because I got caught.
Yeah.
And I'm going to own that. You're absolutely right. I am. Gameology thinks I'm an expert, but I think you all and I know the truth. Obviously, I'm not. And but I think video games are a lot of fun. I think it's fun to interact with those particular games and have a good laugh at them. but I do want to be on record for saying I do not endorse, nor do I encourage anyone robbing banks. And especially, it seems like a lot of good people are watching these games, and the last thing in the world I would want would be to be some kind of negative influence on a young person throwing their life away doing something they thought was fun and cool because they saw it
Yeah.
on a video game. And it just somehow, I don't know, some people are more prone, I think, are more open to being influenced in a suggestive way by stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, let's keep it in the game world. And, I started a little series actually on my YouTube channel. I'll put a little plug in there. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
called Chill, Stay Out of Prison. And I do talk about things in great depth of why you don't want to commit crime and go to prison.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Of course. Yeah.
There's a lot more to me than the label former bank robber.
Yeah, and I would like to talk about that actually. We've talked clearly before this, and you've told me a slew of just stuff that you've done since you've gotten into acting. Doing all sorts of crazy stuff. Clearly, though, Pathios Productions does voice acting, and you told me you're pretty brand new to it. I'd like to hear just your the summary of your acting and how you've decided to start getting into voice acting.
Yeah, so going back to the very first day on set as a background performer, I was actually cast as a featured extra. An F. The irony of life. I was cast as an FBI agent in my role.
Yeah.
And this was in the movie Finding Steve McQueen, that had a whole list of A-list actors, whole cast, and I
Yeah.
played John Finn, who used to be on Cold Case, and he was playing Director Phelps, who was the director of the FBI at the time of 1972 when the Laguna Beach bank heist occurred, and a bunch of $30 million of Richard Nixon's funds were stolen. So I was his personal driver.
Oh wow.
So I was upgraded because of the driving sequence that was required as a stunt performer, and put in both the cast and in the second team as a stunt performer. So I had dual roles. And from that point, I went on and did just to hit some of the highlights. I had a print modeling job for Vistaprint, which is out of the Netherlands. So I ran in 19 countries as a small business owner. I think I was a baker. I was a pastry chef. They had me standing next to this little bakery. We filmed it in Savannah, Georgia, at Collins Quarter, and they would have different languages next to me, kind of on a green screen, and they would.
Yeah.
So did that, and then actual regular real acting, and then recently I have produced a short film that I'm submitting to international film festivals, Venice being one of them. I wrote, directed, produced, and starred myself in this film, and Venice happens to be one of the big three in the world with Cannes and Berlin. So I feel it's amazing. Who would have known this ex-con
Yeah.
who went down to a film set for to get $64 over 8 hours?
Yeah.
Now be living in LA, working as an actor, and having writer, director, and producer credits. This was something I could have never imagined. That's why I'm saying, when my life seemed at one time incredibly hopeless and I'd hit a wall, a life unfolded that's just amazing, and in such a miraculous way. So very full career, and to get to the point where we were talking about voice acting, that's the next niche in the industry that I've been wanting to explore and expand my craft in that direction, is to be a voice actor.
Yeah, and so I use this man's name all the time because he's I would say, lead voice actor in the whole productions. Scott Allen, the famous Scott Allen. He always explains voice acting as acting. I mean, clearly you can make the connections easily. A character, you got to get into it. You gotta know, learn, be the character. Just a little idea of how voice acting can go. And that's freaking awesome though. Just you know, wrote, produced, and featured in your own film, submitting it to one of the biggest things that people probably don't even know about. And when they look it up, it's all full fledged like credential film festival, and everything. Yeah, that's
And it was my directorial debut. I cast the film.
oh wow.
I'm the executive producer of it as well as the creative producer. And yeah, and it's now being reviewed for acceptance in one of the biggest 3 film festivals in the world, and hopefully a distribution deal will come from that. So to kind of circle back to voice acting, I've each area of the industry is fascinating. I've done acting, commercial print. I've done commercials,
Yeah.
and I get called in quite a lot. I've had the amazing experience of auditioning with Academy Award winners to play at roles opposite. I haven't got them yet.
Yeah.
But to be considered
Yeah.
with one of 3 or 4 out of several thousand is pretty cool, and that's a neat experience. But to get into voice and challenge myself in a way where it's not just speaking, it's actually um, taking on the character and being authentic in that character, but through the voice as the
Yeah.
medium. And I'm looking forward to really learning more about that and growing in that.
Now, before I forget, because I forgot to say this earlier, uh, can you explain a little bit about the SAG and just how kind of like that connects a lot of like, or that gives you a lot of connections into acting in general?
Yeah, and to people probably heard of the acronyms SAG, and which is now SAG after. That's the Screen Actors Guild for the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists. It is the union for professional entertainers that work, in as actors or radio artists, voice as well. And where the demarcation line is between union and non-union work is once you become a member of SAG, you become eligible through different criteria. And once you choose to join the union, you've chosen to enter into an elite rank of performers where it's very competitive, but at the same time, you get career opportunities you wouldn't get otherwise. So you're recognized as a professional performer. You have union protection, which that's a big part of it because as a non-union performer, I was taken advantage of legally quite a few times where production would put us in unsafe conditions, make a lot of money off of work that we should have been paid a lot more for. And these are the violations that the union protects performers from. So there's the knowing that you have the backing and the legal teeth to see that you're treated well and protected is really important. It's been very special.
Yeah, yeah. So, just wanted to expand on that because when I first heard about it, I was thinking it was just kind of just a thing until somebody explained it to me. I was like, oh wow, even you sometimes you don't even get to do a lot of auditions because you're not in SAG. People are looking for SAG only, or so on and so forth, and kind of a community you want to be a part of as an actor.
At
Yeah,
some point, yeah, at some point, if you want to pursue this as a career, you're going to want to get into the union. There's going to be more opportunities for you. There is lots of, I won't lie, there's lots of non-union work, but there again, a big part of it comes down to making sure you get what you got coming, that you're going to get paid what you're worth. And number two, you're going to get paid. I mean, there was a
yeah.
union project I was on. I'm still waiting to be paid. That was several years ago.
Oh wow.
It'll never happen,
Yeah.
Um, so there's that, and that kind of gives you a little idea of what that was, because we only know what we know, and I had to
Yeah.
learn like everybody else because on that first day on the set, I had no idea what was going on. Someone said, "Do you realize what just happened?" I said, "No." I said, "Are we done? I'm ready to go home,"
Yeah.
which is still probably lost on the uninitiated because filming is notorious for being on set for 14, 16 hours a day sometimes.
Yeah.
And 98% of it is waiting.
Oh, geez.
You spend time in your dressing room, and when you're called, and then even when they're done with you, you still can't leave. They might need you again for something. So it's a lot of waiting,
Yeah,
and repetition.
of
Tedious.
course. Yeah, yeah. I'm pretty sure all the military people can understand waiting.
Hurry, hurry up and wait.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting thing I wanted to say, and since we're touching on service personnel, the film industry was basically brought together in 1920. That that'll be for another episode when we talk about how
Okay.
Las Vegas and Hollywood are kind of married. But a lot of the precursors to the film studios and networks were generals out of World War actually the OSS, the precursor to the CIA.
Oh wow.
High-ranking officers were put in charge of a lot of the networks and studios. And interesting history if you research that and you do a deep dive into Google on that stuff. The actual way a film set is run is very much like the military. It's done in military time. It's very organized by the scenes. You have your call times for all your performers, and everything is like, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. Be ready when we need you.
Yeah.
So you are a yeah, you're a tool in the hands of the powers that be.
Yeah.
And truly, it's like when they need you, they don't want to have to go look for you or ask where you are. So it's the most amazing thing when you get a hodgepodge of people who are kind of can be very creative, artistic, undisciplined, but they're all punctual.
Yeah. That's
The
that's
number one rule is you are on time.
yeah. Yeah. That
You're on time. 15 minutes is on time. 10 minutes early is late. And we don't care about, no one wants to hear a sad story. The traffic's bad for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah, there's been a lot of. I got a friend of mine who is, and I've said before, he's also in SAG, and he's mentioned that a few times. It's just like, yeah, man, you don't understand the connections between filming and just military. And in my mind, I'm like, no, I don't. Like what? But obviously, he's talking about just the regimented style of everything structured and
Very
just
structured. I was surprised. Very structured, very regimented, very time driven, because production spends some of these big productions, it's literally tens of thousands of dollars per minute. So they cannot
oh,
waste time.
yeah,
Downtime is, you can't have it. That's why people are always moving, moving, moving. They got people on the radios, and really on some big films, the logistics that's involved is very much like a deployment. I mean, to get all the materials, the transportation, the accommodations, the day sets, like some films are out in the wilderness, the jungles. They have to move all that equipment out there. They only got so much daylight, and you have to deal with all the other stuff. Then you have union regulations, like
yeah,
crew has to be fed 6 hours after call time.
yeah,
There's all these rules in all these amazing blizzard conditions. Anytime you
yeah,
see a movie, you're like, wow, those are people actually out in that hot desert.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
you know, and there's a little, all the equipment is just over here. You just don't see it.
You're
But
right.
you think they're all alone out in the desert crossing the dunes, and then there's you've got Crafty, and they've got food services over here.
You got the medic just right there, right off
But
screen.
the logistical feat of pulling off a major film production is nothing short of absolutely amazing. What all goes into it. Even that stupid TV program that everybody looks at 2 seconds and clicks the remote and you forgot about it. That thing was years in the making, greenlit for $80 million, and it might have gotten dropped after 3 episodes. It might have never even made it through the first season, and all the stuff that goes into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah, I was fascinated by that. Really,
Yeah, that's insane, and I hope this helps expand just people's knowledge on how that even goes down. Is for a long time, that's exactly what I did. Just eh, change it. That's nothing. Yeah, clearly there's a lot of effort putting onto anything. So, besides acting, you said you also do writing. Now that is a personal area I like because in my productions I do almost all the writing. So I just like to know what just how I guess how is your writing? Like what do you normally go for?
Well, I went to school at the Upright Citizens Brigade, which is an improvisation sketch comedy
Mm,
school. And there I learned improvisation and sketch comedy writing. Something, if you look at Saturday Night Live, those are sketches.
okay.
There are
Yeah.
sketch comedy writers that do that. So I have interest in several genre. That when I wrote my film, that was my first screenplay. But I've done sketch comedy writing at school. I just haven't put a whole lot out there yet. Um, and I see myself doing a lot more of the comedy side. I've been asked to do a lot more of that by my representative, and I'll be leaning a lot more into that. But you know, I've seen your work,
Yeah.
Jonathan, with the audio drama, and that's a whole new realm for me, and it fascinates me.
Yeah, and it's a complete 180 from comedy, that's for sure. Yeah, just so everybody knows, I showed him a piece of work that I've been trying to finish, and it is dark. It's real dark, and I look forward to bringing him more dark characters to portray.
Well, and you know, the irony of life, like I said, the very first role I had was, you know, who would have thought an ex-banker I was playing an FBI agent. And what was so funny is I'm sitting there at that time I was scared that somebody would find out about my past.
Yeah.
And I was looking at this basically movie based on a real bank heist, and I was thinking, yeah, this is kind of I had my thoughts about the reality of it, but
Yeah.
yeah, you know, I was not in a consultant role at the time. And maybe a little bit about how my acting path kind of forked is that I started off doing very dark roles, and I can still do dark roles and enjoy that. And I was actually in fall of 2018 felt it was time to move to a bigger market than Atlanta. So I was going to go to New York, where a lot of the procedurals are held. And those are
Mm,
like Law and Order, Blue Bloods, you know,
yeah.
your cops and robber type movie. They're called procedurals. And I went up there to read for some directors and casting, some agents and people. And one of them in particular caught me off guard. And she said, you know, when you walked in the audition room, I saw you as a sitcom person. And I said, what? I came in to do a detective role, which is, I got booked a lot of those. They said, yeah, I kind of see you on a sitcom. So it was strange. My road kind of hung a left because they had a program called LA Connect. So January of 19, I came out to LA, read for some agents out here and directors, and found that, you know, was kind of mentored or led that, hey, this is probably the market you need to come to.
Yeah.
And I kept saying, but I'm a serious dramatic actor. You just don't know my intensity.
Yeah.
I'm very passionate about this. And my very first role in LA um, was I was a zombie wearing a pink floral dress. A, a comedy series with vampires.
Oh man.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
your dark role.
And then that stuck. And then I fell into stand-up comedy in a very odd way. It
Mm,
was invited to a comedy club to do an open mic, and I just wanted to go down there and see what they do. I'd never even been in a comedy club, and I was 50 years old. And I went down there, and they said, "Well, why don't you sign up on the clipboard? It's 3 minutes. Just get on stage and do something." I said, "Well, I don't have any material prepared,"
yeah.
and they said, "Oh, it doesn't matter, it's no pressure." I get up there and I didn't know this was auditions, and I did an improv and they booked me
Oh,
for a gig.
wow.
Um, that was June of 19, and then I was in the Uncle Clyde's comedy contest that had LA's oldest running stand-up comedy contest that started with over 600 comedians, and in December I was a semifinalist. And So the comedy career just took off, and I just did a show in Fayetteville, Arkansas 2 weeks ago. Now that we're back in front of live audiences, so I'll be touring and doing stuff, doing some stand up again.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah, who would have thought? I mean, I played slasher movies. I played, really dark stuff and psycho thrillers, and
Yeah.
I don't know. Now I was in a pink floral dress, and it was really short too, and I was a zombie.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen that somewhere.
Well, first of all, okay, I'll put a plug in. It's called The Vamps Next Door. It's a YouTube comedy web series that over, I think, 9 seasons has got over 20 million views.
Yeah.
Now they picked me up 2 years ago and made me recurring. But the role, this is comedy if there ever was one. The role that came out, the breakdown, they call it, they were looking for a cop stripper. So this role was for a police officer to show up to a disturbance call where these vampires were partying. And one of the vampire girls is going to cast a spell on me. All of a sudden, I do a strip routine. And I thought, I'm 50 years old. This is LA. There's a lot more qualified people to do this strip team.
Yeah.
But then I got to think about it. I go, no, it says it's a comedy. So I know which way to take this. And out of 1,200 submissions, I booked it.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's been fun. I love the gang. And again, that's The Vamps Next Door. Check it out on YouTube.
Yeah.
It's really fun. Yeah.
By all means, plug whatever you want. That's the whole purpose. It's you and what you do. So
I don't. Yeah. And yeah. Check it out. It's fun. It really is.
Yeah, I got to check that out.
The Vamps Next Door.
I just feel like I've seen that specific setup though. You as a zombie in a dress. That just sounds familiar, and I don't know if that's a good thing or bad.
And this is the fun thing about putting yourself out there, because once it's out there, it's out there. So you either run and hide, or you embrace it and say, yeah, what about it?
Yeah.
But you can imagine my friends back home in Georgia going, oh, I knew that town would change you.
Right. Yeah. Everybody says it. Everybody says. I think that's a famous phrase to do with Hollywood and changing people. People change regardless, with or without a town.
Hey, listen, it's a different kind of town. I mean, I have a New York actor friend. We were talking about the other day, and I love New York. I love the acting scene up there, and it's a very different world from LA. And LA's its own planet. It's different,
Yeah.
Dark. It's got that side too, so I can definitely tap into that.
Right. So overall, what would you say in your life has helped you, develop what you're doing now?
Where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
It's funny. I've been asked, well, it's cool that you're acting and you're doing you're writing and directing. There's like, are you living your passion with, or I think it's cool you're living your life dream. People just assume, hey, if you've gotten into the industry, this has been your life's calling or your dream. I go, no, I wanted to be a fighter pilot.
Yeah.
Friends were flying F-15s back then, and they retired as generals or full colonels. And no, I was not going to be this artsy feely kind of guy. But to be honest, I had no other choices. I couldn't get a job anywhere. I found myself sitting at home, couldn't get into law school, and really couldn't get a job that would pay commensurate with my bachelor's degree.
Yeah.
Doors were getting shut in my face right and left, and was having a hard time even finding a place to live because I had to live with my mom for a long time. That's the only place I had to go. And then this little background role came up, $64. And the film industry doesn't do background checks. I said, oh, it's a circus. It's like a gypsy camp.
Yeah.
It's not like the French Foreign Legion. As long as as long as you fall in line and do what you're supposed to do, we don't care what you've done, what you do on your own time. As long as you're part of the production that makes money, that's all they care about.
Yeah.
Which is cool. Okay, so Okay, right. But yes, I told someone I had nowhere else to go.
As
That's
you,
how I became an actor.
the luck of the freaking draw, and then ever since then, it's just been, hey, do this. Sure, you just got something from that.
And one, and that's the thing. I've caught some breaks. I mean, I'm a spiritual person. I believe in God, but I've not prayed for anything specific. Just, hey, listen, I'd like to, be able to be self-sufficient, make a living somehow. And these opportunities were put in my path, and they've continued to unfold in a way that's pretty amazing, fun. And I would have never seen this coming. But yeah, to answer anyone's question, I was like, no, I would have never seen this coming. Or I don't know, writing, fantasizing, making up. And, I mean, I always felt I had a creative side in me, and I liked doing creative writing back when I was in high school, but never saw doing this as a living or on any kind of scale that would ever be public. But I
Yeah,
told him, I go, yeah, listen, man, well, here's another thing. If there was a background check for people in the film industry, nothing would ever get made. There's a lot of
that's
people
that's true.
who've had nefarious pasts and they've got questionable private lives, but if they can make money off of you, that's all they care about.
That's very true. I'm not gonna go on that subject, but there's a lot of they would just shut down.
Yeah, yeah, and you got to be a little crazy too to do this business. It really is a weird, unorthodox, whacked out business because the time schedules you work on, right? And I'm sure a lot of people, well, I know military personnel knows that sometimes sleep is a luxury. It's not a right. It's
Yeah,
not a privilege.
yeah,
You're lucky if you get some. So if your call time one day is 6 a.m., then it might be 10 a.m. The next day it might be 3 p.m. Then before you know it, your call time, you're coming in at 10 at night, 2:30 in the morning.
mm,
You're working really weird swings because the union rules have so many hours off between wraps and call times, and your rhythms can be off. Do overnight shoots. It can, and then you're put in weird conditions that aren't always pleasant.
yeah,
Dangerous conditions too. I mean, dangerous really.
yeah.
I did a fight scene for 2 days, multiple takes where I was jumped by 5 guys, and I'll put it out there. HBO still hadn't paid me for that. Um, yeah, I'm just gonna put it out there, HBO, and maybe another episode. I even tell you what the show was. I might start making an issue of this actually.
Yeah, you just
That hurt getting slammed on a gravel street
oh
over and
yeah,
over again. I still don't have the stunt performer pay for that. Yeah.
yeah.
I hope somebody in HBO runs across your show,
Yeah,
mine, and it's like, whoa, what?
just point.
I throw them under the bus, man. Those 2 days hurt.
We're gonna be typing up. We got him. There he is. Shut him down. He
They're
wants to
going
get
to
paid.
archive this one day. I'll be on some talk show doing an interview, and they go, hey, we have this.
Yeah,
Big Brother's always watching.
yeah. Of course, of course. Um, so I can just imagine that though, getting beat up like more than once a day. Yeah, and the director just sitting there like he's not
All day
selling
long.
it.
All day long. It's like, what's not perfect about this?
Yeah, yeah. To the point where you're actually getting beat up, and they're still like, "No, I don't like it."
Yeah, you think at that time, let's see, when I shot that scene, I was 49 years old, and these were young
God
guys.
dang, yeah.
And it was 5-on-1, and they had other stunt performers who had mats they could fall on. I didn't get a mat. Um,
Yeah, people may see that as like, oh, what's the big deal? Believe me, I've been slammed on grass and that shit still hurts. It's just grass, but it hurts.
well, yeah, and the thing is, this is why I go back to the union. I wasn't
Yeah.
in the union at the time. I was working
Um,
in a union set, but as a non-union performer. Just before, even though I was eligible to join the union, I hadn't joined yet because I hadn't built up a resume or a demo reel, so I was still working.
yeah.
Because once you join the union, you can't do non-union work again. But they did me dirty. They should have upgraded me that day. I was picking gravel out of my ears and hair
Yeah.
into the day, and
Yeah. So I can attest to the severity of somebody going full force.
well,
Back
they
in
got a little carried away too.
yeah, I mean, yeah, because it's a set. You gotta.
It starts off, hey, pull your punches, act like you're kicking him. And then all of a sudden, I started catching a few. And it was, and I was like, hey, fellas, right? Because,
Yeah.
like I said, I might throw the name of the production out there sometime later.
Yeah.
It was a very emotionally charged scene for everyone on set. It was very passionate scene, and my little scene was just one of several going on.
Yeah, of course.
It was like a big melee, but still, we had Molotov cocktail get tossed, and horses and cars getting turned over, and then there's me in the street in the middle of it all, and
Yeah.
that's called paying your dues.
Yeah. Right.
Like I said, I got nowhere else to go.
Yeah. You you want to get paid?
I'm old. I need the money.
Yeah, right, man. That's funny as hell. I mean, not putting down your pain, but that's pretty damn funny. Um, yeah. So, you got quite a resume now. That's a good thing about it is hearing hearing a good chunk of the stories. You've done a lot. you you got a lot to go off of. You've learned. You've experienced. And for anybody who may have forgotten, he had robbed a bank one time. So it's like that's it. And
Twice.
Oh,
It's a
okay.
okay, I did do two.
All
Part
right.
of the plea was I had to cop to the other one. So
Oh, okay. Well,
okay, because here's the thing, obviously, right?
yeah.
Not an expert,
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah. So, Gameology.
Just one more, and I'll stop. One more, and I'm done. That whole deal, right?
Yeah, right. Went from robbing the bank to now the bank robbing you out of your money. So is
And
yeah.
and listen, here's what I didn't know. Okay, so I had to pay the money back that I stole.
Of course.
Right, that's called restitution. So after just shy of 10 years, I get out and my probation officer says, okay, and it's with interest. I'm like, what? 10 years of interest have been accruing on it. Oh, man,
Oh, wow.
right. And so remember, I was in debt from gambling, figured robbing a bank would take care of that. It didn't. And then 10 years of my life, and then interest on top of the money they got back. I mean, wow, it did not pay off.
Not at all. No, that actually double dipped you out of
It
the
put
money.
me behind the eight ball so bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
That's that. I mean, that's interesting. Actually, I had no idea that was a thing. But I mean, it makes sense. It's the government, so
it's the government, man. They're going to get their stuff back. Which this is a tangent for a whole nother day. But
yeah.
I could go into how unfair, and people are going, oh, no, he's saying it's unfair. How unfair the sentencing is for some people. Hey, listen, man, there's people out there who they kill people and they got less time than I did. This was my first felony conviction. Granted, it was 2 indictments, but I mean, I never hurt anybody. I mean, I scared people, and okay, that's hurting people because.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean.
I mean, but the thing is, yeah, there's been people who've murdered people, and they might get it knocked down to manslaughter or something, and they do less time, or they're sex offenders or something really horrible.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, man. Hey, but the thing is, you steal the government's money, dude. You're public enemy number one.
Yeah.
God forbid you take money that doesn't belong to you. Kill all the people you want, this, that, and the other, but.
Yeah, you start messing with the government, and they're just like, "Nah, throw them in the hole."
Right, and yeah, I mean, and the thing is, or what's really sad, and not to turn the show into this, but you got a lot of young people who they have problems with drugs, and they weren't bad people; they're addicted, and then they got long sentences. for drug possession.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean
Or,
that's been a. I
or-
mean that's been. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
well, just that, or they get trumped up charges on them for manufacturing, trafficking, and selling, and that's not true. They just found drugs on them
Yeah,
that they were using for their own addiction. Yeah,
yeah,
and then the very, very long sentences. So I have to be fair about that. I met young people who had much more time than I had to do, and they hadn't hurt anyone, but got caught up in the whole war on drugs thing, which they're incarcerated because they have a disease. Not
yeah,
saying that everybody on a drug charge is great people, but so many I met, they yeah, they were just good kids. 19, 20 years old, got 20, 30 years to do in prison.
yeah. That's a long
Yeah,
time.
there's no parole in federal prison either. There's no parole. Whoops,
Ooh,
that's no parole. They just they have what they call game time, which you get 54 days for every year vested off the back end of your sentence. But you don't get parole. You come out, and then you have what's called supervised release. So you have a federal probation officer, not a parole officer, a federal probation officer.
yeah.
So when I came out, I had twice as much supervised release as most people. I had 6 years to do.
Dang.
Where, yeah, yeah. So, and thank God I'm all off of that and out of the system. But so that's just a little thing to throw out there, is that the sentencing guidelines are very unfair in so many ways. But yeah, don't take the government's money.
Yeah,
Pay
yeah,
your taxes. They know if you owe them money.
yeah, yeah. And don't be worried if you're being tracked. You got a cell phone, you're being tracked. So
They're listening to what we're saying right now.
most likely.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, dude, you can't hide. Not in this day and age.
I mean, if anybody is listening, please check out my content and don't forget to like and subscribe. So haha, yeah. But other than that, man, let's go. We go ahead and we kind of reach the end of this. Would you like to say anything to anyone who might be struggling, down a similar path, or who may be trying to make it in the industry?
Yeah. One, if you are depressed, please seek help. If you feel like hurting yourself or that life isn't worth living, please ask for help. There's nothing wrong with admitting that we all need help from time to time. So, and I know that's hard when you're in that situation. In fact, I didn't even know what depression meant. All I know is I was in a lot of pain, really sad, had no energy, was sleeping all the time, I had no hope. And two, if you want to get in the industry, I mean, I'd like to start off by trying to talk you out of the idea. And if I could tell you all the true realities and you still want to do this, well, you might be crazy enough to give it a go. Because, and I'm sure a lot of people in the armed forces can relate to this. Okay, there's how you think it's going to be, there's how you're told it's going to be, and then one day someone puts their arm around your shoulder and says, "This is how it really is. This is how it really works."
Yeah.
Okay, unlearn everything you thought you knew. This is how it works. And when that day comes, it's kind of like, sort of took the magic out of everything.
Of course,
That's another episode. If you really, I'm going to write a book. So you want to be an actor?
that'd be an awesome book. I mean, that's true. That's true. I'll definitely, I mean, I'm gonna hit you up for some more anyways. So we'll decide what what the next one's gonna be about. But that would be an interesting one to hear.
Hey, do we have time for one more? Just to throw it in there.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I tell people you're not a real actor until you've been faced with a moral dilemma.
Yeah.
And this is when it's the acid test of whether or not you can really act. When you're asked to, when you're given an audition for one thing, for a role that goes completely against your value system, everything you believe in, and your job is to be a professional, to be convincing, to embody that. And if it's a commercial, you're selling a good or service that you may really think, wow, if people do this, they might die.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking, products that may not be particularly healthy to people or that you may not think so. So, what do you do in a situation like that? Do you say no? You tell your agent, oh, no, I don't do that. I can't do that. Well, all right. But you have to understand, once you get into it at a certain level, there's a lot of people working for you. They don't get paid unless you get paid. And people can say, okay, well, that's cool. I respect that. But, you do it too many times, people don't want to work for you anymore because, you know what I'm saying? So I will tell you, I'll just tell you some auditions I've gotten. Oops, there I hit my computer again. Okay, so here I am, right? Serious dramatic actor. I'm going to play those really Academy award-winning, tear-jerking roles, or I'm going to be the tough guy, or whatever. And then all of a sudden, you're like, "What do you mean? What do you mean they want to? They're considering me for an adult diaper commercial." You get to a certain age, it's hemorrhoids, Viagra, adult diapers. And you're like, oh man, and this is a national commercial too. And
Oh. They gonna see it.
oh man,
Yeah.
Or I had an audition for Netflix, Love, Intimacy, and Sex. It required full frontal nudity and erotic self-touching.
Oh.
Now, you don't disrobe in the audition, but you're wearing your little da-da-da-das so they can get kind of an idea.
Yeah.
And this is an all-female cast and crew was for that. So I'm just going to throw it out there. I didn't get picked. I was flattered I was considered. But I don't know what that must have been a comedy show, really. So I was like, oh my God, y'all caught me in the off season of life.
Yeah.
But the whole thing is this, and I got to say this. I hope this really gets aired. I mean, Jonathan, I hope this really takes off for you. Okay, in the day and age we live in, right? Me Too, and all that. And granted, yes, lots of horrible things about all that. Not right. Don't condone it. I'm not laughing at it.
Right.
I am. Some of it.
Okay.
But listen, man, I get this audition, right? Nobody puts a memo in there. Hey, are you okay with this?
Yeah.
Full frontal nudity. Do you feel safe? Do you need to call an 800 number? Reporting one. Have you had your snacks? I was like, hey, wait a minute, man. So if I were booked, I'd be down there with a whole female cast crew. I mean, why don't you just turn Crafty into a wine tasting while we're at it? We'll have just wine and cheese. Crafty, by the way, is craft services. They bring the food.
Yeah.
So that's the snacks and all that. So I think there's a double standard in the industry. A lot of people don't care to hear about the male version of, well, wait a minute, man. No one really cares about how I feel.
So the audition just came about, and there was no consideration about potentially if you would to feel kind of against the whole thing.
Okay, well, okay. Now, to be honest, and be clear, all right. Okay, so I did tell my agent,
yeah,
I'll do anything.
Okay, yeah.
Let me just okay, because you know what? All right, I said that, but I'm just saying that the breakdown that came from Netflix didn't have any little excerpt in. I didn't. Oh, there was going to be an intimacy coordinator on set. I just didn't feel it was totally as warm and encompassing towards a male role as it probably would have been if the breakdown had been for a female. Just a little bit, be sure it's okay or whatever. This and the other. I don't know. I'm being a baby about it, I guess. So for some reason I just thought, yeah, it's kind of interesting that I personally think, by the way,
yeah.
Full frontal nudity on a female, yes, you see breasts, but you don't really see anything there. Dude, full frontal nudity on a guy, man, there's nothing that to me, that's different. That really goes, that's almost like, especially when you're talking about maybe light erotic touching, whatever quote that means. Yeah. I think under California code USC 18543.7 Berger versus state of California, I think that's adult film actually. Legally,
yeah, that
I think if you're getting close there to any genitalia touching, I think all of a sudden you're kind of drifting into a different water.
Yeah, I was about to say that just the term erotic touching is also really broad and not specific.
Yes, yes. And having been on the other side of writing and directing and stuff, man, things can change. You get on
Yeah,
set. Wait
yeah,
a minute. What's this thing?
yeah.
One more with it. There was a
Okay.
public service announcement. I won't say what the agenda was behind it, but I personally did not believe in this. But I had to kind of soldier up there and just really be a convincing role to speak this kind of propaganda.
Oh,
Hollywood is a megaphone of media messaging. I want everyone to know that. And we'll save that for a whole nother discussion. But be a critical thinker if you haven't already figured it out, or be told. You know, it's a production. There's someone's producing it. There's a narrative, and see it for what it's worth. These are the things I would tell someone who goes, "Oh, I want to be an actor."
yeah, yeah.
Or
There's definitely a whole culture to get used to.
this is not your high school musical, and it's great you have a Bachelor of Fine Arts, and I'm not taking anything away from all that, but you're not a real actor until you're put in a moral dilemma where you're like, okay, well, you call yourself an actor, act like you believe in this.
Yeah.
And if I will have to plug this, if you've never seen the Kaminsky Method on Netflix, watch that series, because it really parallels all of this, what I'm talking about, where Michael Douglas is the consummate actor with a conscience, and that's why he never made it in Hollywood. He was a great drama teacher, and then he gets put on a national commercial by his agent, and it's for one of those reverse mortgages where he they have him all being all trustworthy looking and everything, and he
Yeah.
said, oh, got a little fireplace. Yeah, there's no way you could ever lose your home with a reverse mortgage. And then he goes, hey, stop. Can we stop just a second? He goes, I've actually done some research on this. You really can lose your home on a reverse mortgage. So he
Yeah.
doesn't, yeah, he walks off set, and they find someone else who has no problem
Yeah. Yeah.
doing the thing. So it's just what I'm saying. It's a business. They call it show business, and it's 98% biz, 2% show.
Yeah. Definitely a lot for somebody new to come in. A lot of gray areas for people to make their own judgment if they want to do or not do whatever it is. So I guess overall, get to know yourself before you jump in. What are you comfortable with? Uh, well, that's all I got for you, man. I appreciate you coming by, and I appreciate everything you've done and that you've recovered from, because hopefully this helps other people understand that they too can recover from their mistakes, whatever they regret in their life that they've done. Living proof right here. It's been done. Recovery is possible.
Yeah, good luck, everyone. And seriously, best wishes and intentions for everybody out there. And have fun playing video games, but remember, they are games.
Yes, yes. And remember to think like what you want to do if you get into acting. It's not everything you think it is. It's different.
Well, and I'll say this too, and I'll put that out there to the audience. I have a YouTube channel, Camden Pace, and you're welcome to reach out to me. Instagram at Camden Pace. DM me if you have questions about the entertainment industry, or if you are considering acting, and I'm good about answering anybody who reaches out.
And all links will be posted in the description to check that out if you're not able to find it. So be on the lookout for that. Other than that, that's all I got. Everybody, be easy.